Next one is around security. So, do we need to change?
Can I have a drink, please?
Yes. Drink break.
I meant cocktails.
They do, yeah. Can we order some from here? So, do we have to rethink security for multi-cloud, or is it the same? Is it just kind of status quo?
I don't think that the approach to security is going to change much. It's the same thing as if I have a single cloud, right? I have to look at the data center where I'm storing my data at. Is it physically secure? Is it certified for ISO 27001, SSA 16, PCI level 1, things like that? And then you have to figure out, again, the data is just the data, right? We all feel safe when the data is in our data center because it's in our little bubble and we feel safe with it, right? But when you start storing things in the cloud or multi-cloud, you have to take into consideration how you're going to protect that data. So data at rest, how are you going to encrypt that data at rest? What are you going to do for data in transit, data in flight? Are you using, secure sockets? You have to really do what you've been doing, but take those same practices and apply it to the multi-cloud environment.
Yeah, so I would add to that in the survey I mentioned earlier, we did it the last 2 years in a row, and we had a whole section on security and governance and what are the big obstacles or challenges for enterprises. And what's interesting, it's actually pretty simple when you think about it, those companies who've been using cloud longer have a diminished sense of security concern. Governance is still static, almost regardless of the amount that you use it. And I think that's because of the increased regulatory requirements that we're seeing. Thank you to the NSA and other things. But ultimately, the point is there are techniques now that didn't exist several years ago to deal with security in a multi-cloud world. You have to do it right. You have to have all the right practices that surround it. But there's a lot of innovative startups helping to solve the problems in this space. But I would agree with you. Sometimes back to basics and how you operate it.
Yeah, I think that security is less a technology than a process. So, Ovi, I think you were saying exactly that there are certainly technologies that are minimum critical, but it's necessary, but it's not sufficient. So the process is around understanding your vulnerabilities, prioritizing those risks, and choosing how much you can invest in mitigating those, and then starting over again. So I think some of the ways that you approach that problem are really around understanding what your vulnerabilities are, logging everything, and that ties into some of the other things that are, I think, making it more accommodating for public cloud consumption anyway, which is the visibility, the transparency, the auditability. Again, back to if you automate everything, then you can show the auditor that which you've automated and you can validate against it. You should be logging everything. You can then show them, look, there's been no change. If you're rigorous with all of those practices, your ability to deploy applications across multiple clouds is really consistent because the way you operate across multiple clouds is consistent.
Yeah, I think the key word that keeps coming up is consistency. And it's not just consistency across the board, but it's consistency as appropriate for the data or application that's in question. The analogy might be literally my money, right? I have money in a checking account, a savings account, a brokerage account, a 401k account, a call it savings plan, in my wallet, on my iPhone. I have, and the money may have a single source, but it has different purposes, different time horizons, different applications, et cetera. I don't necessarily have the same exact set of policies across all of those different accounts, but I need to know that they're safe. I have some minimum standards, like Ovi was saying about, certifications that all of those accounts need to have, and then based upon what I'm doing with those and how I access them. I think visibility is actually really critical here. I need to know at any given time exactly where my money is, who's got access to it, that I've got access to it, and where it's available, et cetera. So, those are kind of the general parameters to think about.
Yeah, I'll just add on the visibility thing. I mean, that's having been a consumer of both public and private, there's an incredible amount of value in knowing everything down to the last component of an infrastructure, which you can do in private data center infrastructure, which you can't do in public. There's only so much transparency any public cloud provider is going to share with you about when they're making changes, what's happening with neighbor instances on your node or your top of rack switch or other points of contention in that infrastructure. All of those things can matter in a security context, like is somebody making malicious change? Well, so far you've not really heard of any of the public cloud providers having such a breach, right? There's been no fundamental gross negligent flaws or bad practices out there. And I think that combined with the price keeps going down has relaxed a lot of the security fears, and money talks. So I think that's why at least there's been a dramatic shift and more increased comfort with the public cloud consumption as it relates to security.
Which makes you wonder, at some point way down the road, does this start looking like, or just start asking to be a regulated market? So,
Well, it is a regulated market. I mean, you look at the, I can't remember what the SAE 16 or whatever the SAS 70 is now. Like all of those standards, like you look at what you have to sign up for as a public cloud provider, it is regulated. So you still have to do your own due diligence to validate, okay, demonstrate to me or read the summary reports or whatever it is to be comfortable with that. But it is super regulated. And then IT itself is regulated. Thank you, Sarbanes-Oxley and all that fun stuff. So nobody trusts anybody anymore.
I just want some of his money.